I am Jenny and welcome to FREEJOO, the global community of educators. Let me show you why as an educator you should make FREEJOO an important part of your teaching and learning practice. A community of teaching practice is important for any educator. On FREEJOO you will be able to access CollabEd, which is like LinkedIn but for educators. Here you will be able to connect and network with other educators from all around the world. You can build your own community of teaching practice and/or join one of the many other existing groups and learn and share ideas, lesson plans, etc. with each other. Then, for a more formalized approach to professional development, you can go to SkillEd, which is like Netflix for educators. Here, you will be able to access a wide range of courses designed by global experts that will help you to learn about new pedagogical, technical, and soft skills, all related to 21st century education and the future of work. There are more than 20 courses available for free, and for more advanced level courses, you can upgrade to the Silver membership plan for just $20 per year and get access to all courses designed by Akadasia. The courses are available in English and in several other Asian languages. And what's more, you will receive a free verifiable and tamper-proof digital certificate for each course that you complete. If you have upgraded your membership to the Silver, Gold, or Platinum plans, you also get access to DesignEd, which is like Canva for educators. Here you will find the easiest and fastest way to practice your own instructional design skills and build your own courses. We have pre-integrated several third-party edtech apps like Flipgrid, Canva, Mentimeter, Padlet, H5P, Zoom, etc. right into FREEJOO so you can make your courses engaging and fun for your own learners. As you can see, there is a lot you can do on FREEJOO as an educator. So what are you waiting for? Go to www.freejoo.com and get your very own free lifetime membership today. See you soon on FREEJOO.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're from. I hope everybody is doing well and is healthy and hearty. It's so good to welcome all of you once again. It's a Wednesday, and as most of you perhaps have already figured this by now, we have an event for you every single Wednesday. So today, we are going to be talking about the importance of better interpersonal skills. And before I get into the event proper and introduce you to our guests, I want to share with you some good news. Today is a very wonderful day for us here at Akadasia and FREEJOO. First and foremost, it's my father's birthday. So happy birthday, Dad, if you're watching this. And the second good news that I would like to share with all of you is that just today morning, we found out that we've been selected as part of the elite 200 tech companies in the world. So we're very, very happy for this. And once again, thank you, all of you, for your support, because without your support, we would not have been able to manage this at all. So thank you once again. Also, I would like to remind you once again that today is part of our webinar Wednesdays, which are free events. We have already completed practical approaches to increasing your happiness on the 5th of Jan. And today we are going to be talking about importance of better interpersonal skills. You will be receiving a certificate for this for free, provided you are logged into FREEJOO and complete the course by the same name as well. And it's a free course, so please do go log into freejoo.com and create your free account today if you have not been able to do so as yet. You will find that once you create your free account, you will also get access to more than 20 courses for free, including the one for interpersonal skills. All right. And also, let me remind you, next week, I will be continuing on our workshop, which are paid workshops. And next week will be the practical approach to using Garnier's 9 events of instruction. So once again, if you attended our event last week, you know that I went through the basic understanding of Garnier's 9 events of instruction. And next week, I will be talking about how do we actually use that pedagogical framework in a very practical approach by creating a lesson live here. Okay, so you might want to sign up for that as well. And once again, please do sign up on FREEJOO.com. So, having said that, let me now take this opportunity to introduce all of you to our wonderful panelists today. So first and foremost, I'd like to introduce Hester Spiegel, who is a founder and the EdTech advisor for a lot of EdTech startups in Asia. She started her career and pretty much was there for about 15 years as a management consultant in M&A and the financial sector in Amsterdam, London, and Frankfurt. And after having worked in that sector for more than 15 years, she pivoted her career by almost 180 degrees and became Germany's country head for a global edtech company called and a founder of 2 campuses for a modern education system and a coding school called FREEJOO. Currently, she's an advisor, mentor, and trainer for startup founders, including me. She is my guru and also a very, very good friend. And surprise, surprise, she's also on the board of Akadasia. And having said that, I'm so happy and thrilled to welcome Hester Spiegel. Hester, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Nilesh, for the very kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. My next guest, which I would like to introduce all of you to, is Miss Camille Navarro, who's an education consultant in the Philippines. After her graduation from the University of the Philippines with a degree in teaching in the early grades, Camille has taken on the following roles. She started off as an early learning educator, moved on to becoming a communications officer, and also managed a school as an assistant school directress and technical support representative, to name a few. And she was there at many schools, including iAcademy in the Philippines. The various roles have provided rich experiences and better understanding on how interpersonal skills could be useful in any setup, be it at work, with friends, and or family. And having said that, I would very warmly like to invite Camille to the panel. Camille?
Hello, Nilesh, and hello, everyone as well. Hope everyone's keeping healthy and safe.
Absolutely, Camille. That's so good to see both of you, Hester and Camille. And let's get this thing started. Unfortunately, Kirsten, who usually runs these events, is unable to be with us today. She had a last-minute health issue, so she is going to be resting, and I will be the host for the afternoon. So I hope I am as good as Kirsten normally is. So please do forgive me if I am not as entertaining as Kirsten. All right. So let's get started. I have a question here. So we typically hear from a lot of terms on a regular basis, without necessarily ever learning what those terms actually mean. So as we start our discussion today, can I get both of you to help define interpersonal skills, and why do you feel this is an important skill set to have for teachers and for learners? Yeah, anybody can start.
Right. For me personally, I define it as being able to read and understand people, to put it loosely, but to provide literature and a bit of history, so to speak. Like I first heard it 20 years ago in an educational psychology class where Howard Gardner, back in 1983, along with his colleagues, introduced multiple intelligences. And his premise was that all of us have that intelligence. And part of the original 8 is interpersonal skills. And he basically, in a gist, defined it as the capacity to detect, and respond appropriately to moods, to motivations, to people's desires. So that's basically how I've carried it through the years, how I've loosely defined it for myself through the years. But as to why is it important, there are various reasons, and I think all of them are important. But what I'd like to highlight this afternoon is that one, really having interpersonal skills allows you the opportunity to give more than the minimum, to go give that extra mile, to share a story. You've introduced me as a communication officer before, Nilesh, and that's really part of what I used to do before. And part of what I did for the school was to schedule school visits and show the facilities and amenities we had. And of course, I could just do that. But I think what was more important was through the phone conversations, I was able to jot down what the parents would say about their children. So if a parent would say that his child loves dancing, then why not put the schedule at a time where they could actually experience a music and movement session? Or if, say, a parent says that his or her child loves stories, really make the child experience a storytelling session with everybody else in that class. And also, apart from just showing the amenities, it was also, I feel, important to introduce everyone in the community, to from the administrative office to the people in the cafeteria to even your security team, because in a way, this would be the school's way of saying that here your child is really safe, your child will really feel comfortable and safe. And I think that's parents put the premium to that, and parents are our clients in schools. But to also use an example in another industry, last week I was fortunate to be able to speak with a good friend who's worked in the airline industry for a good 20 to 25 years. And one of the things she really pointed out was how important it is to provide the best experience to all your frequent flyer passengers. And I know airlines have their list of frequent flyers. And apart from just looking at the bio and seeing, or looking at the profile and looking at what you think or what they have listed as what the client likes, and what he might enjoy as a snack, or what drinks this client enjoys. What's also very important is you really put yourself in the shoes of the frequent flyer passenger and understand that he's not just in transit, or she's not just in transit. The airline actually becomes his or her second home. So, you really have to make that person feel comfortable, because this person is someone who's had breakfast in his country of origin, had a lunch meeting in another country, and had cocktails at the end of the day, also in another country. So, putting those two together, I think ultimately it's important, because you want that continued patronage, and
Mhm.
you want that continued support, and
Right.
that's important.
Awesome. Hester, how about you? What do you think? What is your view on what is interpersonal skills, and why do you think they might be important?
Right. I think they're very important. And I totally agree with Camille. It's about putting yourself in the other one's shoes. It is how you are able to connect with people. And you can do that on a verbal level, and you can do that on a non-verbal level. Non-verbal being using your body language and your senses. So on a verbal level, connecting with people, you can do by saying, I understand, or repeating what the other one says, speaking it out, using language. On the non-verbal level, there's a lot going on, right? Your body language is there. You can connect with people by mirroring your body language to the other person. That creates a sense of connection unconsciously. By your habits and your behaviors, how the other person perceives you. That builds trust or does not build trust. So how is trust built up? basically by credibility. So do I believe you? By reliability, do you do what you say you do? By intimacy, so how safe are you to communicate with? And all of that is influenced by self-orientation. So where's the focus? Do you focus on yourself mostly, or do you focus on someone else? So those 4 factors determine trust. And trust is very important in interpersonal skills. So remember those elements as you're trying to connect with people. Interpersonal skills has to do with very different levels, and also with your track record. It is built up over a period of time. Like going to the gym, right? You condition the other person, and you can influence it as you go, verbally and non-verbal.
Right. Well, I think one of the skills as part of that we consider as part of interpersonal skills typically is also an effective way to communicate, communication skills. So and also with active listening being critical for understanding on all sides, what tips and strategies do you have for someone who's actually actively trying to improve their active listening skills?
Right. The literature is actually pretty varied when it comes to that subject matter. And Hester was able to touch on the verbal and nonverbal aspect of things, if we're able to read between those lines too. But likewise, I think I want to point out that we know a lot of these things. Establishing eye contact, for example, or ensuring that when somebody's talking, we do not interrupt, or we probably raise our hands before we speak. But I think I also want to continue where Hester pointed out that it's a practice. It doesn't come automatically for all of us. For instance, you'd hear "do not interrupt somebody who's speaking," and that seems basic. That seems like something everybody knows. But I think as human beings, we're also wired to make associations and connections right away. So when somebody's talking, so when a friend goes to you and starts recounting how poorly their day started, I think our brains automatically go back to an experience where we also had a bad experience. And then we start recounting that too, that, hey, last week I even had a worse week. But that's where we should catch ourselves. I think that's where the practice comes in as much as we would like to automatically jump and maybe create that connection. I think it's also an opportunity to catch yourselves and take a step back and really actively listen and just allow the person to recount his or her day.
Esther, anything to add there?
Yeah, a trick that I use for active listening is to visualize it. So I visualize what people say, and I'm a visual person, so that may help with other people who are more visual. So, for example, when somebody tells me my mother is sick, and that's why my mind is just not in the right place to focus on the upcoming event, for example. I tend to visualize this lady lying in her bed being sick, and then unconsciously that is connected. The next time I see that person, I think of that visual. So it's like, how is your mom? And that shows that person I've been actively listening. So that's kind of a trick that I use. It also avoids the fatal mistake, I think, of asking things twice, right? If you have to ask things twice or let somebody repeat him or herself, that makes a dent in the relationship. That doesn't show very good interpersonal skills and active listening skills. So that's just a trick that I use that maybe helps others as well. Visualize what people say, and then automatically that connection is made next time you speak with that person.
So if I could just add up, a follow up with on that, I think when we are having a one-to-one conversation, it perhaps is a lot more easier for us to kind of get into that whole active listening zone and really understand. So, like the example that you just provided, Hester, about that perhaps the person's mother is sick. So you next time you can meet, you can ask that person, hey, how's your mom? So I think on a one-to-one basis, um, that is perhaps a lot more easier to do. But like most of our viewers here today are teachers, and typically teachers would have anywhere between 40 to 80 students in a classroom. And of course, hats off to them for being able to deal with so many students on a day-to-day basis. But for teachers, considering that they have such a lot of students to deal with every day, um, how do they practice the skill or the technique that you mentioned? Because I can only imagine how difficult it must be to really zone in on a student in all the cacophony that is going around in a classroom, right? So any thoughts on that?
I have no teacher experience, but I think where you have more people that you're communicating with, still try to really connect with a person. It's almost like breathing that person in or so, right? That you really connect and you feel that, and that is where online communication is fundamentally different than in-person communication, because online that is very difficult to make such a connection by just concentrating and kind of feeling that person. That has a lot to do with energy. I think in larger settings you focus on the ones that matter, right? Some it is just different. You have something to that you would really get input on, then you focus more on that particular person. But I can only imagine what skills it takes to lead a class of 40 to 80 people. I have so much respect for all of you who do this. So I'd love to learn from you how you do this, because I think that's a unique skill, and I have lots of respect
Right.
for that.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
maybe
well,
Camille has
Camille,
a relevant experience here. Yeah.
yeah. So Camille, you've been a teacher. What do you think?
That's right. You know what? I agree. We should really um, give it our hats off to all our teachers out there who's handling 80. I can't imagine 80. 40, I've tried, but even that was tough. um, Primarily, I think we should be in a good place ourselves too before you really start dealing with all 40. You must have a good support system to begin with too. You have good team of friends where you know that if you're having a tough day, you could just go to them and just recount that day hour by hour, and they would understand, and they won't say that, oh, here she goes again. They just perfectly understand that that's how you are and that's how you deal with things. And it's the same thing too. Before you go to your students, you have to make sure you're mentally ready also, because it could be anything. It could be a family concern. It could be concern with grades. It could be concern with friends. And I'm very lucky to have worked with really great guidance counselors. And I think this advice would be something we could carry too. Um, you know how it is when the students start saying that, hey, I'm really having a difficult time with your class. I'm really finding your subject quite difficult to pass. And because our experiences 10, 15, or 20 years ago were different, our natural tendency would be to what? Back when we were your age, we didn't have Google, or mention that back in your age, our friend was the library card. So we had to rush to the library to check on all those research that we had to do. But that's also not active listening. That's not very active listening. So in a way, this brings me back to the point of really catching ourselves. And quite frankly, it's difficult, especially when you have built you've built your own experiences, and your experiences are also very rich. And again, as humans, as I said, we really want to make that connection. Hey, I was able to do that too. You can do it, but that's not what they want to hear. That's not what your students would like to hear at a particular moment. What they would like to hear perhaps would really be more the acknowledgement that, hey, I hear you. It is a tough time, and especially with the pandemic ongoing, it's still a much harder time. um, I have nephews and nieces, and they're saying the same thing. So we really have to acknowledge what they say, and maybe, hopefully, if when they're done sharing their thoughts on the matter, then we could. That's when we start helping. Here's a trick. Here's a suggestion. Maybe you want to take it on,
Yep.
and allow them for themselves to also see the outcome of whether or not they take your suggestion or tricks.
Yeah, in fact, that's exactly why I believe, and that teachers are actually human beings with superpowers. I have one son, and just helping him grow up and be a good citizen has made me lose all my hair. So I can only imagine all the teachers dealing with so many students in a classroom, and for a moment you can just visualize like Superman or Superwoman, like Wonder Woman, where they zone in on just that one little conversation that is happening in the streets of New York. That's what Superman and Wonder Woman do, and that's exactly what our teachers do, and that is exactly why I strongly believe that teachers have superpowers, and unfortunately, they are not appreciated enough for those superpowers. So yeah, hats off to all the teachers out there today. So let's move on to the next question. I think during the conversation we mentioned about how the communication has changed these days. And I think the pandemic has partly played a role in this. It has vastly altered the way we interact. How has our shift to the virtual world altered approaches to interpersonal communication?
Yeah, happy to go first. I think there's a few things in that we all know, but that are very different from how we're used to interact. So first of all the interactions are planned online, right? They need to be scheduled. There's no room for informal talk or for spontaneous meetings or for a hand on the shoulder, which can make a huge difference in someone's day. Everything is planned, and that takes a lot of time. Further, the attention span is shorter, right, online. So we need to plan our meetings differently, cut it up in shorter, bite-sized pieces so that people don't lose attention, and also make the variation bigger, because you cannot play with things in the physical space. So for example, when I give a training, I make sure to do short pieces of just where it's one-way communication, and then a lot of exercises or people talking, peer-to-peer exchanges, etc. And again, because you cannot exchange anything in a physical world, you need to fill that gap. I always make sure that I fill that gap by small things like sending a photo of a nice memory that you shared with someone on a moment that you think about them. Has nothing to do with the actual why you are connected, right? Why you're teaching or why you are in a project together. It's just like, hey, I'm thinking of you. So those little things make a huge difference in filling the gap that we experience by having to do everything online. So it's a very conscious alteration of how we interact. But the interpersonal skills you can still maintain, but you have to get a little bit creative.
Camille?
Right. To add to that, before the pandemic, several companies were actually doing teleconferences already. So maybe nothing new. But now I think it's the mainstream. It's become the mainstream. So Hester's right. Everything has to be scheduled, and we have to take into consideration that meetings have to be made shorter. Apart from that, if you're working at home, you're not just working. You're also the cook. You're also managing the household. So it's I don't know, it's a question of balance, or should we say that balance is already thrown out of the door? It depends on how you really are doing right now. So I think that's how it's different. But at the same time, and going back to what you talked about in terms of superpowers, Nilesh, earlier, I think in a way that's how we also know that as human beings, we're really flexible people. We're able to actually accommodate. First, we assimilate, then we accommodate. So we're able to do that. It is difficult. We're still we're still going through the motions. Quite honestly, I don't think we have perfected it. We have to fine tune it in the next couple of months or the next couple of years. But at least the past 2 years have proven that we are flexible. And I really like that touch also, Hester, what you shared about somehow making it personal, like sharing a photo. Because, right, since you can't hug, you can't shake hands, you can't give a tap on the shoulder, those are things that we may need to share virtually at the moment.
Great. Thanks for those responses. So let me move the conversation in a slightly different direction. I think culture also plays a huge, important role in communication. The body language and words mean different things in different places. As the virtual world has brought us new and exciting opportunities to interact with people from around the world, do you have a couple of do's and don'ts for people who are looking to broaden their network and get to know people from different cultures? And this also is especially true for a lot of our teachers, because on FREEJOO, as part of Collab Ed, we do have an online network. So teachers are interacting from different countries, from different communities and cultures. So I think your feedback on this would be really, really helpful to them. Yeah.
Camille, you want to go?
I was going to say, Hester, you probably have more experience in this since you've spoken to more. Go ahead.
I have some funny stories how I learned the hard way, having lived in. So I am Dutch, as you can probably hear. Then we moved to London, and then where I worked for 6 years in a corporate environment, and then to Frankfurt, and now here in Singapore. Very, very, very different cultures and the communication styles. The two things that vary most, I would say, to really pay attention to are the sense of hierarchy in a culture, and secondly, how direct you can communicate, what is accepted and what is not accepted in terms of being direct to others. So the hierarchy thing is it is usually culturally determined how people view status and how important that is. So, for example, in the Netherlands, in a professional environment, the boss, let's say, is okay if their people in their team just speaks up and give constructive feedback. There is no such thing like losing face, for example, which in Asia is much more present in interpersonal communication. If somebody usually doesn't speak up to their boss, right? Just to protect and not lose face. Whereas that person may be very well helped in a professional sense by some constructive feedback, like with all respect, but you got it wrong, right? Or this is what is actually the case. So be very aware how the sense of hierarchy is and what is accepted, and then being direct is very different. So, for example, when I lived in London, I was working for a Deutsche Bank at the time, and I was working on a project, and I was working with a very typical Brit, and he was super indirect, and I was just coming from the Netherlands, quite direct. So we clashed every now and then. And when I used to come with something, and he said, and I said, so here's a proposal. What do you think about it? And then he would typically say something like, well, bear in mind, and then la la la. And I'm like, okay, I'll bear that in mind. Thanks for the tip, but I still think it's a good idea. So we're going ahead with this. But when the Brit says bear in mind, it actually is no. This is not such a good idea. We should not go ahead with this. So this is partly experience, but also you can read up a lot on it. So if you have ambition or plans to work in another culture, do some research, because there's a lot that you can read about important things. And I think directness and sense for hierarchy are two key things where you can build rapport or actually damage your relationship.
What I could share perhaps will be more for I think our culture. Of course, please don't look at it as a hasty generalization, but I think for us Filipinos, when you talked about directly speaking or plain speaking, sometimes say a project didn't work out, and you just say it as the project was a disaster. And sometimes we take it as oh my goodness, I was a disaster. So instead of focusing say on the project, we may tend to look at it as we ourselves really aired big time. So maybe how to say it would probably be these were the good points, maybe just 1 or 2 points, and these are definitely areas we could work on, and then um, bullet everything that we have to work on or we have to improve on, so that way we can actually detach from the message that it was a disaster, more that the project really needs improvement. So hope that helps.
Well, I think both are excellent viewpoints. I would like to add on there. So my own experience, I was born in India, and I grew up in New York. I went to school in New York, and now I live in Singapore. And in between, I have traveled a whole lot. I've seen different countries. I've traveled to Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, and every single country has a different culture, different communication method. Lots of do's, lots of don'ts. The way I communicate with my Filipino friends, for example, is very different from the way I communicate with my Indonesian friends. They're two different ways of communicating. Filipinos, I find, to be very outgoing right from the first day. Whereas Indonesians, you need to build that relationship. But once they get to know you, then it gets to be a lot more easier. And now, with even with FREEJOO, uh, we are running this company across 6 countries. We have staff coming in from 6 countries, and I'm happy to say, the way we communicate internally, we've kind of it's an unsaid, unspoken kind of a way to communicate, where just be direct. Ask, don't assume things. If you think that you are not clear about certain things, just ask, and we are more than happy to assist. We are more than happy to help. And that seems to have worked pretty well for us, because our teams are working well across 6 different countries. So I think one thing I could add in there is, when teachers are working with students, or working with colleagues from different parts of the world as well, or just networking with other teachers on the FREEJOO platform, I think it's important to also read up a little bit more about the country from which this particular person is coming from, and what works and what doesn't work in that country. These minor differences in culture, if you understand them, I think will go a long way in helping you build a very, very strong and a positive relationship with the other people. So just my 2 cents there. So let's get on with some additional questions. I think this one's going to be a pretty touchy one. Um, what advice do you have for teachers who seemingly can't get their supervisors to listen to them? I think there are a lot of teachers out there who will probably connect with that question.
I can answer this only in general, right? So, like a hierarchical
Mhm.
relationship, it's I would always advise to communicate in the most personable way possible. So the least personal is email, SMS, WhatsApp, right? There's no voice and there's no live interaction. After that is voice, right? So a phone call, and most personal is to meet. If you're in the possibility, always meet. There's so much more that you can exchange and get across and build a relationship when you have the more personal form of communication. If you can't meet in person, call that person. Try to call, make a phone appointment if necessary. And if all fails, then you write a message. And maybe you write a message to make an appointment so that you can have the actual content exchange in a more personal manner. That's what I would always advise, because so much get lost in email and words and wrong interpretation because you don't have voice. So communicate in the most personal way possible, and then everybody has its favorite channel, right? So for example, the other day, my phone, all the apps were like moving, so it was not locked when it was in my pocket. It's like, oh dear, and then one was missing on the bottom. For 10 days, I could not figure out what it was, and it was actually the call app. So after 10 days, I wanted to call somebody. I'm like, okay, this is a bit silly, but how do I call on my phone? And only then I realized I was missing the call button. So I do a lot over WhatsApp and over email. So those are my favorite channels. Other people may use SMS, for example, or other channels. So communicate on the favorite channel of that person, because that is where you can connect the best. And then if you really have a relationship to build, if it's not there or even if it's damaged, try to find out things outside of your direct relationship. So what drives that person or what interests that person? For example, sports, right? Maybe into tennis, and you can talk about the latest tennis tournament. And so to build a relationship by finding connections on different levels and on different topics may help. And check also for yourself, is the relationship damaged? Is there something that could have happened that I'm not necessarily aware about that may have pissed off the other person, for example? Is there something? Just do a check internally, because people interpret things differently. And then maybe you can check that also with that person, which is always appreciated, even if there's no damage. So connect on the most personal way possible. Try to connect on the favorite channel of the other person, and try to connect on other things than the actual content that is the topic. Would be my tips.
Thanks, Hester. Camille?
What I'll add to what Hester shared would be, well, do a bit of research as well. We talked about doing a bit of research about the culture. Should you change, work in a different country? But it's the same thing also with working with people and with whether it's your supervisor or just a colleague or even friends and family. There's a myriad of literature, so you can actually use, say, personal traits or learning style or working style, or if you want to do quadrants of the brain, that's also available. But I think it's also necessary to kind of understand where your supervisors are coming from. And I think if you read, say, design thinking, that's probably the first phase, empathy. So maybe try to find out where is the school currently, or where is the organization currently, and what do I think my supervisor wants to achieve. So try to also put yourself in his or her shoes. But going back to working styles and learning styles, I think in the first few days or weeks, you'd probably be able to determine if, say, your supervisor is the logical, mathematical type. And maybe if you have to pitch something, what he or she would like is something already in a spreadsheet with the bottom line readily seen. And as much as perhaps you're the creative type, you're awesome at graphic design, even if you come up with a perfect deck, with the most colorful deck, that's probably not what your logical, mathematical supervisor would like. But on the other hand, if you have a supervisor who's, who likes creativity, who actually allows for creativity in the workplace. And I don't just mean in terms of graphics. I don't just mean visually, but maybe creativity in wordplay. Maybe he or she is a wordsmith. So maybe your pitch or your ideas, how you share your ideas, it could begin with maybe an interesting pun, so that you really catch the attention of your supervisor, and maybe it's a side of you that he or she has not seen. um, you're lucky if your supervisor is strong on interpersonal skills. Then setting that appointment is perfect. Really have that dialogue, really have that discussion. That's really something they'd be going for, and hope those help.
Yeah, I think I would like to add one more thing here. From my experience, what I've learned, having interacted with so many people around the world, one thing that helps me build that bridge initially is food. Just going out for a meal together. Just eating and drinking together. As friends, and I think that really helps break a lot of ground, and helps people better understand each other, and brings them closer to be able to break down the barriers and communicate at some level, right? I remember before I started this company, I spent about 9.5 years at the Singapore Polytechnic, and I still remember the day I got, when I went there for my interview, the director of the school, who actually finally decided to hire me for that interview. I was so prepared. I thought that I'm going to be asked all these questions, but all we discussed about was our favorite foods. That's all we discussed. And I learned a lot from her, because it allowed me to realize that what she's trying to actually get to is to know me as a human being, not as an employee, as a real person. And of course, I was lucky to have somebody like her to lead the team and supervise me when I joined, Singapore Poly. But I guess if your supervisors are not initiating that mealtime, perhaps you could actually step up and say, "Hey, how about we go out and have some, let's go for lunch together. Since we have, let's just get to know each other." It doesn't have to be related about work. It could just be about getting to know one another at a human level, and then moving up from there. So that's perhaps something that might help. I know in Philippines, food is something that is always, welcome. I mean, I love the food in Philippines. Well, thinking about it, I kind of think about leche flan. I wish I had leche flan right now. But anyway, let's move on. I'm going to open up the session now to questions from the audience. Okay, so let's see what the audience have to ask. So the first question that we have is, some of the teachers here have not been in the same room with their students for a couple of years, and some are welcoming students into their modified classrooms for the first time, perhaps. So what advice do you have, if any, for teachers trying to introduce students to face-to-face learning that have either not experienced it before or haven't experienced it since the last couple of years?
I'll answer this question by sharing sharing something a friend messaged the other day, and they were preparing for another friend's wedding. So basically, everyone in that group knew each other in primary school or in elementary school. And because we were in lockdown for 2 years, for some reason, um, they could really identify that there was awkwardness. They didn't know how to really start a conversation with each other. It seemed like social distancing, in fact, was a comfort because all they had to do was create that distance and smile from afar. But so my friend messaged me and said that, is it just me or people have somehow forgotten um, how to talk to each other face to face. So we've gone rusty on our face to face interpersonal skills. And I guess that would be the same for our students. So I think we have to acknowledge that the moment they get back in the classroom, there would be that awkward face, there would be that awkward moment. And maybe as teachers, that's when we bring out our arsenal of icebreakers just to keep everybody talking and just to maybe get everybody moving just to break that ice.
Yeah. Thanks, Camille. Hester, what do you think from a teacher to teacher perspective? I think more like your colleagues. A lot of the times, perhaps colleagues have also been just working with each other online. Suddenly, now we're meeting face to face for the first time in 2 years. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it is funny to see how people's perception of space, physical space, has changed already. It's this uncomfort when people are close by or keeping the masks on, and that has changed. And I wonder to see how that is going to develop, if that will stay like this, or if we get more comfortable again being physically close to other people. The other thing I see is that people just love being together again. There's such, exchange flowing and energy flowing of like, oh, and they keep talking and they really enjoy being in a room together. Um, that's what I also see. People just have missed being in a room together and being able to just talk about whatever, grab a coffee and go out for lunch together, all these things. Yeah, it's almost like a happy reunion sometimes. So it's very double, right? It's uncomfort with the physical part, but on the kind of the connection part, it's like a feast sometimes for people. Yeah,
Right.
it's very
No,
very
in fact,
personal. Some people are more introvert and others are more extrovert. I think that plays a huge role in how you deal with this change
right.
again. Yeah.
No, in fact, for me personally, um, I haven't met anybody on our team except for the people who are in Singapore. I haven't met anybody on the team from the 6 countries that we operated in the last 2 years, and in fact, some of them I have never met them face to face. Period. So, like Kirsten, Eddie, my entire team, not the entire team, but most of the team in Indonesia, I have never met them face to face. Even our new academics manager in the Philippines, we've never seen each other face to face. It's all been virtual, so I can't wait to get everybody in FREEJOO to get into a same room and really get to know each other. So let's move on to the next question. So one of the teachers asks, what is the best approach to deal with people who are extremely close-minded individuals?
So close-minded.
Yeah.
So they have a very strong opinion, are not open to other views in that sense, or more like
Yeah, they're not
introvert.
open. I'm guessing, I'm assuming that it's perhaps that they're not open to different views, but it's a question from the audience. So
Yeah, that's difficult. I mean, sometimes I just give the person what he or she wants in the first 30 seconds. So, right, because they're unlikely that they will change their views during the conversation. So it's a bit those problem cases, right? And what works best for me is just give them what they want early on if there's nothing going wrong by doing this, and then maybe you can start developing a relationship because that person gets what he or she wants, right? I'm personally not of the illusion that you can change this, however more pleasant it would be.
Camille, what's your view?
In communication, some literature actually talk about acceptance. So we really come from different experiences, and definitely perspectives would differ too. So I think I can't even say the best piece of advice. It really will just be a piece of advice that you can do is just really try and talk to the person, try to share your views, and supposedly just be respectful with whatever he or she may feel about it, and just accept the person who he or she is, because as Hester also mentioned, if there's really no way to change that person's view or mindset, you can only do so much too. So I think acceptance and respect plays a big part.
I think you're right,
Right.
Camille. And if you're putting yourself in the other one's shoes, try to, because maybe there's a reason, right? That is
Yep.
is this way. So try to understand and also say this. Use language like I understand, or if I understand you correctly, you are of the belief that, yeah, and you can disagree.
Yeah.
Still, you
Yeah.
build this
That's right.
relationship. That's also
Yeah.
personal skills. Yeah, yeah.
No, I think that's so true, right? At the end of the day, a lot of it boils down to, very good, having good interpersonal skills, and learning how to empathize with people, learning how to really empathize with each other. I think one thing that I've realized is, um, a lot of people really need to practice their empathy skills, and it's so important. It's so important to practice. It's a skill that you need to constantly practice. And if you are unable to empathize with your colleagues, with your supervisors, then I think a lot of the friction starts, you know um, starting from there. Like, oh, I why did Hester tell me this? Why did Camille, do this in the meeting? So obviously we need to learn how to empathize, to understand why did Hester say that, or why did Camille do this. What was there something that I said? And again, don't assume things. I think that is the other big issue that I see in a lot of communication breakdowns. Is it all starts with assumptions. I assume that Hester said this because she doesn't like me. But I would rather ask Hester, hey, can we go out for a cup of coffee and let's talk about this tension that we are feeling in this relationship. Let's just talk. We both are adults, and we can agree to disagree, like you said earlier. But at least we know that it's not personal.
Yeah.
you know so I think those strategies could really help teachers as well. Well, we have time just for one last question. Um, and over here, um, a teacher asks, can you please advise me as an instructor who is having a very hard time to communicate or express myself to other people? She's a teacher, so I'm quite surprised by that question. But any thoughts?
Yeah, if communicating itself doesn't come natural and is difficult, I would work around it by at least building trust, right? Because with trust, you can build relationships outside of language. And again, there's a few ingredients to trust which you can build, no matter what your style is, which is being reliable, right? Do what you say and do that consequently. The intimacy, right? Make sure it's always safe that people share things with you, that it's safe to talk with you. Um, so also be consequent, right? Be consistent in your behavior and be credible, right? So being credible is basically so what you know and how you communicate it. So do I buy into what you do? Um, so those are things that you can work on, and via those things build a relationship through trust, building trust and building a relationship without having to rely on language and being without having to be outgoing or extroverted.
Camille?
What I'll add to that is, if you're not comfortable speaking, and you're feeling a little shy, we talked about practice earlier. That came out a lot in our discussion. And part of practicing communication, maybe it's important to write down your thoughts. Even make a script if necessary. I know that doesn't sound so natural for people to do that individually. But if organizations actually spend 2 weeks or even more, a good portion of their time as part of onboarding. How do you put it? Like really focus, big focus on interpersonal skills. Then maybe we could do that individually too. Um, Write a script. If there's something that you want to say to a friend, it may be a crucial conversation because you may be pointing out something that you um, want that friend to change in the relationship. Then maybe you can write that down first, read it to yourself, because when you read it to yourself, you'll probably be able to anticipate how your friend would react. Because we talked about trust earlier, and if you do trust your friend, you also more or less can anticipate how they would react. It's also the same thing when maybe we would like to present something in a big group. Maybe it's important to write that down if you're not comfortable with what you're going to say. After you write it down, say it out loud and listen to yourself. How did you feel when you listened to yourself? Did you find it awkward? Do you feel that you need to practice making it sound more natural? Because those are, I think, those are crucial things to do. And this may take years. Quite frankly, it's not. I mean, I think it's also an underappreciated topic, Nilesh. Like we talked about underappreciation earlier, and so is interpersonal skills. Actually, you talk about math skills, and you go, "Wow!" Musical skills, and people go, "Oh, fascinating!" But interpersonal skills, we don't really make movies out of this, right? But it takes years of practice, and I think writing down may be helpful for those who don't find it natural, and maybe through the years the automaticity may come eventually, we hope, because you've already experienced various kinds of communication with various kinds of people. And somebody also wrote down something, asked a question about how do you catch yourself. I think it's also related to writing it down. Just write down your thoughts, write down your day, write down how you reacted to a person. Make it like a journal or something. I don't know, you could go old school. I'm pretty old school. I still have a notebook, but some of you do it through blogs, and that's fine too. So when you write it down, you have the opportunity to reflect and go back to it and eventually change it if necessary.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we don't really have time for another question from the audience, so we will kind of conclude the questions from the audience at the moment. And I would like to invite both of you at this point to just kind of, take a moment to recap your thoughts about interpersonal skills in general, and any final words of advice for the teachers. We have teachers today from all over the world who are participating in this event. I know for a fact that there are people from Romania, from Africa, and also from Indonesia, Bangkok, Singapore, many countries. They're all watching, and it'll be awesome if you could just kind of share your final thoughts about the topic. And Camille, I would just like to address. You mentioned that interpersonal skills is not a very, hip topic, and that's exactly what we do here at FREEJOO. We want to make sure that we cover all topics. We understand that teaching is not a glamorous profession, and we just don't want to talk about stuff that glamorizes the teaching profession. There are many other things that we want to discuss openly in this kind of an open forum, and hope that the teachers will be able to learn from these discussions as well. So having said that, any final thoughts on the topic for today, interpersonal skills? Ladies?
Okay, so I think that the interpersonal skills is really about being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, being very sensitive of other people's viewpoints. To your point, Nilesh, I think that was a very good one. Don't assume, and always try to understand the other person. Has a lot to do with respect. I also saw that coming by. That is all in the same. So try to look at it from the other viewpoint. in communication, say, I understand. You can use language. Don't underestimate the power of language. When you say simple things like, I understand or I hear you, that sets the tone and has a big influence on the relationship and the conversation that is about to follow after this. That's the verbal part. Then the non-verbal part is very, very deep. And you can also, you kind of have to rely on this in online communications, right? So check in more often with people. Are they still there? Fill gaps with small things, paying attention to the small things. See how you can keep the relationship going by being creative, making it a bit more variable, because you can only play with what you see on the screen and not what is in the room. So get a little creative by making a variation in there, making it fun, coming from another angle in how you can build your relationship.
Thanks, Hester. Camille?
Right. What I'll add to that is, I think the core of any communication is, number one, you also have to still be yourself. I think for communication to be sincere, to be authentic, um, try to remember your strengths, what you can, like in how you convey it. So if you are more mathematically inclined, then maybe that's how best you could communicate. Or if you really are artistic and you're good with your hands, then maybe um, a drawing could communicate that better than words. But well, we centered on practice a lot of times, and I hope we're still practicing the online approach, and this is something we still have to fine tune in the next couple of months. So I think just reviewing or just writing down our thoughts on how our day went, how we communicated, and breaking those down to pieces, like, oh, I could have improved on this particular part. Or instead of saying this, I could have instead said it more directly. Because sometimes I think for Filipinos, what's tougher is to say things directly. So we kind of beat around the bush more than just speak plainly. And maybe that's something as a people we could work on. But on the other hand, let's also remember that listening plays a central role in communication too. It was often said by Neil and also Hester that we should not assume things. Like when we're listening to a conversation, don't immediately connect it to something that may have happened to you also in the past, although that is natural. And that's where I say we should catch ourselves. Always really listen with a fresh perspective. We don't know where each person is coming from at a particular moment. So also bear that in mind. Um, so there, still boils down to, I guess, acceptance and respect of each individual.
Well, thank you so much, Hester and Camille, both of you, for your excellent insights and experiences that you've shared here today with our dear teachers from all around the world. I'm sure, as you can see from the comments, that all of them are highly appreciative of your time and of the insights and the knowledge that you have shared with them today. So on behalf of all the teachers, I would like to personally thank both of you for joining us today afternoon. And and I hope that both of you enjoyed your time with us as well, just like we have. So thank you once again, Hester and Camille, and I look forward to speaking with you, very soon after this. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It was a real pleasure.
Glad to be
And good
here
luck
too.
to everyone out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And with that, I would now like to kind of bring it back to a closure. I wanted to kind of just remind everybody about what is coming up next. So we have just completed the importance of better interpersonal skills. If you want your certificate for today's event, very simple. Go to www.freejoo.com and sign up for the course Building Interpersonal Skills. Okay, complete the course and you will get your e-certificate automatically. It's free, no charge. So what are you waiting for? Go and sign up on www.freejoo.com and complete the course and you'll get your certificate. Apart from this, you will also find that there are many other courses that you can actually take and you can earn your certificates for those courses as well. Finally, I would also like to remind you for about next week. So next week, I will be continuing our Workshop Wednesdays series. I started last week, I started understanding Garnier's 9 events of instruction. So next week, I will be showcasing a practical approach to Garnier's 9 events of instruction. I will actually show you how to create a lesson live using the framework here. And of course, the certificate for that particular workshop, for the next workshop, will only be given to the premium members. So you will have to upgrade your membership for that to gold, silver, and or platinum. So how do you upgrade? Again, go to freejoo.com, and on the left-hand side of the website, you will be able to see an upgrade menu, your membership panel. Just click there and upgrade your free account to a silver, gold, or platinum to get your certificate for the next week's event. For this week, it's absolutely free. So having said that, once again, thank you everybody for joining us today afternoon. Please stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy wherever you are. And with that, take care, goodbye, and I will see all of you next week. Bye-bye.
I am Jenny and welcome to FREEJOO, the global community of educators. Let me show you why as an educator you should make FREEJOO an important part of your teaching and learning practice. A community of teaching practice is important for any educator. On FREEJOO you will be able to access CollabEd, which is like LinkedIn but for educators. Here you will be able to connect and network with other educators from all around the world. You can build your own community of teaching practice or join one of the many other existing groups and learn and share ideas, lesson plans, etc. with each other. Then, for a more formalized approach to professional development, you can go to SkillEd, which is like Netflix for educators. Here, you will be able to access a wide range of courses designed by global experts that will help you to learn about new pedagogical, technical, and soft skills, all related to 21st century education and the future of work. There are more than 20 courses available for free, and for more advanced level courses, you can upgrade to the silver membership plan for just $20 per year and get access to all courses designed by Akadasia. The courses are available in English and in several other Asian languages. And what's more, you will receive a free verifiable and tamper-proof digital certificate for each course that you complete. If you have upgraded your membership to the silver, gold, or platinum plans, you also get access to DesignEd, which is like Canva for educators. Here you will find the easiest and fastest way to practice your own instructional design skills and build your own courses. We have pre-integrated several third-party edtech apps like Flipgrid, Canva, Mentimeter, Padlet, H5P, Zoom, etc. right into FREEJOO so you can make your courses engaging and fun for your own learners. As you can see, there is a lot you can do on FREEJOO as an educator. So what are you waiting for? Go to www.freejoo.com and get your very own free lifetime membership today. See you soon on FREEJOO.